It, it was never a measure of health. It actually has nothing to do with health, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you look at the recent research that's coming out, a lot of places are like negating the whole BMI business because it doesn't have any, it's not an indicator of health in any way, shape, or form. And once they did the actual equation, once they made up the equation, it wasn't until about 20 years later that they decided to make these categories. And even those categories of healthy weight, overweight, underweight, they were made by pharmaceutical companies to help just give more measures to it, right? To make it seem like it was more, what's it called? Valid, essentially. Okay, so the weight that you're at, what do you have to do to be able to maintain that? Like, do you have to be like working out at the gym for 4 hours a day and eating barely nothing to be at that low weight? Because that's not ideal health, right? Because you should be eating, your 3 meals and having a variety of different foods for good physical health, but also mental health, to feel
100%.
like energized and tired. So it's really looking at, if you are at a low weight or you're trying to get at a low weight, what do you have to do to maintain that, to make that sustainable for you? And is what you have to do actually sustainable for a healthy lifestyle? And is it actually healthy for you?
Hello and welcome back to another episode at the Founders Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing a topic that is very, very important and millions of women are affected by it. Just the simple thing about women and nutrition. As simple as it is, a lot of us are affected by it. We don't have access to the right information and sometimes the right person to talk to. So today we have Saabira Wazeer, who is an accredited dietitian, counselor, and an eating disorder clinician based in Melbourne, Australia. Welcome, Sabira.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for today's conversation.
Yes, me too. I am super, super excited because Zara and I have been in conversation for a long time. And even the Founders Podcast and our company as well that we have set up is focusing on women's wellness and well-being. And just 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I was like, Zara, my diet is all off. My hormones are all off. It would be nice if we could have a conversation with somebody. And, you figure like all these things you go read up online, you read up and you think, I'm going to try this. And you're thinking, oh, there's so much worse than what it was. Or it might make you feel better for a little bit. And then you're like, right?
Yeah.
So we're so excited to talk to you and get through what we had planned for today. So, Zara, I invite you to open up the conversation with Sabira.
Thanks, Rishma. Good to have you back again. We have all been on a diet at some point in our life as women. And I think this is very important for all women who are tuned in, listening to us, to know what is the right way to do things, right? So, Sabira, we are talking to you in Melbourne. Thank you for making the time, despite the time difference, to joining us. Can you tell us a brief about who you are and how did you come into this field and what made you choose to become a nutritionist?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me again. So I've actually been in this field for about 10 years now. Um, what made me come into it? I have absolutely no idea. I feel like I was pulled into it through through nature of its own. I think my own history, again, being on diets and being on different things and trying to figure out my nutrition as a young girl, like as a teenager, probably is what led me to this. I was guided in this direction, and then studied nutrition post high school, and then really got interested in helping people to achieve their goals, but without just going on diets, because I was finding like many people are on diets and then they're off it and then everything comes back and it's just not sustainable. So then part of that, I went off and became a counselor because I found that, it's such a holistic thing. It's not just nutrition. And nutrition is also about behavior change. It's impacted by your stress and your mind and your mental health. And it's a mind game essentially as well. So I went off, did my counseling and combined the two together. So now I work with women and people of all ages. helping them manage their nutrition and diet and eating. When I say diet, I mean just the eating behaviors and their mental health. And, I think bridging the gap between the mental health and the physical health is what I do through nutrition and lifestyle. But yeah, that's a little bit about what I do.
So you are born in Sri Lanka and you migrated to Australia, or like give us a bit about your childhood and about your food habits and what said you struggled with your own diet experiences. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I actually was born and bred in Melbourne, Australia. My parents migrated when my siblings were young, so a few years before I was born. But I'm a Sri Lankan. I'm so Sri Lankan at heart that my half my heart is still in Sri Lanka. We visit often to Sri Lanka, but then I think my issues with food and nutrition probably stemmed from being a migrant in this country more than anything. Even though I was born and bred here, I was very much a migrant, having like a very Sri Lankan diet at home, but then also being exposed to the Western world and the Western foods as well. I guess it's a part of the adjustment of it all. Really struggled with what foods I liked. I guess it would be a good place to start. I think you get so pushed to be like, no, like to dismiss your cultural heritage and your background here, that's actually what you need though. Like it was what was good for me, but it's not what I thought was good for me growing up. So it really was a struggle, I guess, in that way. I think body is also a huge struggle in our community. I think there's a lot of body shaming. I remember, like for me, the most common thing is whenever I visited Sri Lanka on a holiday, the first thing, without a doubt, that's said to you is a comment on your body, whether you've
Gain
put on a
weight.
bit or down too much. Yes, it's like you can never please anyone. Right. That also played into part in there was a huge struggle there because my parents would make sure we visited every summer holidays. So we were there most of our holiday times. We were in Sri Lanka. So that constant, like you go 1 year and everyone's like, no, you're too thin, you gain weight, and everyone's pushing you to eat and everything. And then you go next year and you've put on, and everyone's like, what's happened? You've put on too much. And then you're like, what do you guys want from me? But then when I speak to people, it sounds like it's such a common thing, like that those body comments are very common in our culture, unfortunately.
Yes, yes. Especially for women. I think men get away with it a bit, but for women, everyone's supposed to look like supermodels, but the people who comment are not exactly in the best of shape. So there is that contradiction. So it is quite interesting that you experienced it while you're visiting, but we're living in it. So the impact is, I guess, more. This, I guess, comes to a second question of like how women's relationship with food, right? For example, I was listening to a famous, I don't know if you've listened to this podcast, Dr. Stacy. She's from New Zealand, and she does about diet and nutrition and fitness for women as they age also. And she says that a lot of women either eat too little because they're so scared of putting on weight, or then the other end of the spectrum, they eat too much. So apart from these social pressures, why do women in particular have such a difficult relationship with food?
I think the main one is this social pressure. Women are expected to look a certain way and appear to a certain way. But then also women are pressured into what we call hustle culture to do more with themselves, right? And so they're expected to do more. They're expected to look a certain way, to be a certain way. Like there is a picture of a successful woman, and that woman is often very thin, doing everything, probably more than what's humanly possible, but managing a certain way. And then now we look at that and we go, okay, that's what we want to achieve. And we're all pushing ourselves to achieve that we actually forget about the person that's there, right? And looking after that person. So, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question properly, but societal pressure is definitely the most common reasons why women struggle with their relationship with food. I mean, you can say gut health, hormone health are all there, but if you look at the cycle, it all comes back to the way they're able to look after themselves and how they perceive themselves in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because if they perceive themselves in a way that I guess is I'm not good enough, their behaviors are going to reflect that essentially.
Yeah. You know, Sabira, you're really encapsulating a lot of the, like, even the statements that I receive from women who come into my practice. And recently, we actually had a podcast, a recorded one with Ayurveda doctor, and she said something also really very much on the lines of you. You know, she was talking about, you know, when you don't respect yourself, you don't practice self-care. So the lack of self-respect sorts of, you know, weaves into this problem of, like you said, you can say whatever it is, hormone, metabolic syndrome, blah, 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 blah. But that concept, you know, looking at yourself as like, you know, I'm worth this time taking it out is fine. It's fine. I'm going to take this time out, do this thing. It's going to take an extra 30 minutes, but that's
Yeah.
fine. So
Yeah.
that was really, really nice. And the fact that you were also talking about, you were trying to look at merging or understanding the culture of food for you growing up was one of the challenges, and identifying, because this is something that I noticed when you were talking about. I was like, wow, going through my database of persons, what food you like, is it okay to like that food, you know? So I've had statements, I don't know if you're familiar with Sinhala, but I've had statements where women would be like, oh my God, madam, if I eat that, they'll think I'm trying to be this posh person and eat healthy. I've got to, like, you know, do the heavy coconut milk food to ensure that, you know, you don't lose relationships,
Yes.
you know, that
Yeah.
people see you as this sore thumb. So I really like how, you know, like weaving all of these things together with your narrative. Thank you. Zara, would you like to go on?
Yeah. Thanks, Rishma. So basically, that is a poor relationship. But also, are we looking at food as counting calories instead of like looking at the nutritional value of what we're eating, and if this is going to help body in any way, you know, that kind of thinking? How do you see that?
So I'm just gonna, Zara, I remember you saying earlier that you listened to a podcast who was saying that women are not eating enough, and that reason why they're not eating enough is because there's a fear of food, essentially,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
One of the reasons why we fear food is because of this new found technique of counting calories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the science behind counting calories is actually there is no science. Counting
Oh.
calories it's so hard to count the calories in a food. So, for example, if you just say you have 100 calories of strawberries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you eat that 100 calories of strawberries, you might not actually take in 100 calories of that strawberries, because the way your body metabolizes it might be that you only take in a few, and each person's body will metabolize that strawberries differently, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Based on
God.
how their metabolism works and how everything, like how their body functions, and each person differs depending on their genetics, their environment, the temperature, everything. There's so many different factors that play a part in the role of metabolisms. The simplified science in the weight loss world, where it's like you eat 100 calories of strawberries and that's 100 kilos you take on, is oversimplified, and it scares people, right?
Yeah.
Because they feel like if they start counting every single calorie that goes in, and they think that every single calorie that goes in is metabolized in the same way. And then they think that if they eat too much of that, then they're somewhat going to not achieve their goals. Whereas what we know is that 100 calories of strawberries does very different to 100 calories of beef or 100
Yeah.
calories of rice. They all metabolize differently because they're made out of different components, and your body actually takes them in differently as well. So the whole calorie counting thing is what we call diet culture's way of actually taking us away from achieving our goals by convincing us that we're trying to achieve our goals, right?
Mm.
And it really plays with your mind. Like, I'm not sure if you've ever counted calories before, right?
I'm bad at
But
maths. I can't.
Good.
me too, don't worry.
Very lucky.
But when we count calories, there's so much stress over the number of what we're
Mm-hmm.
eating, how much we're eating, that we don't actually realize that stress on about how we're eating it will also change how we metabolize that food as well,
100%.
right?
So the
And
stress
so
is playing a key part in how we digest the food.
Yeah,
Mhm.
stress always plays a key part in how we digest the food. Stress, again, there's so many genetics, your environment, your hormones, even the temperature around us will play a part in how we digest our food because they all impact the way our metabolism works, right? So yeah, again, the oversimplified maths is very much like it feels like diet culture thinks us as like vehicles where you put 100 liters of petrol in and then you burn up 100 liters of petrol. That's not the way we work,
That's
right?
Mhm.
So again, calorie counting, a lot of people say it helps. I say it's just unnecessary stress that
Mhm.
keeps us away again from also looking at the nutritional value. So when we look at nutritional value as well in foods, now 100 calories of strawberries, for example, is very different in nutritional value to 100 calories of, let's say, bread, okay, or beef. They're all, but because they have different nutritional profiles, right? But if you were to look at 100 calories in bread, you can only maybe a slice or two. But if you're looking at 100 calories in strawberries, you'll have a huge punnet full of strawberries. So the volume is also different, right?
Yeah.
And also what we find is when food's more processed. So for example, if you're getting like, these cereals and all, right? They can actually be lower calorie, but less nutritional content compared to whole foods such as, beef or vegetables or something like that, where you have to eat more of, right? So, like, calories doesn't always say nutritional value. So I'm trying to use examples in Sri Lanka, but like when in Australia, all right, we have like white bread, which is processed bread, like ultra
yeah,
processed bread,
yeah.
and we have brown bread as well,
Mhm.
right? Now, white bread is actually low in calorie compared to brown bread, right? But
Oh, is it? I
it
thought it was the
is.
opposite. Yeah, that's
No,
interesting.
but then the brown bread has more nutritional benefit. You look at it from a perspective of calories, then you can also, it's very easy to also be very unhealthy because we're looking at calories, right?
Mm.
And I know, like, I don't know, I'm going to just keep going on a tangent with this, but like one of the things I struggled with is like the whole Western food versus our cultural foods, like Sri Lankan rice and curry, which one's more healthier, right? And if you
Correct.
look at it from a very diet perspective, so when I talk about diet culture, I'm talking about the culture of restricting your food into in the hopes of losing weight. Okay, so when we're talking about diet culture, it really emphasizes a Western diet as being healthy for weight loss, right? So
Mm.
you see a lot of people going like, oh, boiled vegetables and grilled chicken and then potatoes and stuff, and they try to do that. And even like I see like people of culture. So Sri Lankans, Indians, Pakistanis, all doing the same thing. They try to change their diet to fit this Western culture. But to be honest, like if you actually look at our cultural foods, like a plate of rice and curry, if you have like your greens and your vegetables cooked in the nice spices, even if it does have that coconut milk or whatnot, the nutritional benefits in that. So when we look at gut health, hormone health, all these health like tangents, we see so much more benefit in our cultural food, right? Compared to
Mhm.
the Western diet, right? I always say, like, hang on, these Westerners are adding turmeric to their lattes, to their coffees,
Yeah, yes.
right?
And cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon.
And Ceylon cinnamon as well to their
They're so
coffees. And
famous.
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? We add it to our rice and curry every single day, right?
Mhm.
And they're trying to find ways to eat all of these things, like, and that's where we sometimes lose the focus on what are we actually looking for, right? We're trying
Mm.
all of these like trying so much to change our ways to a Western culture and Western diets, but is that actually beneficial to us? Because the research shows us that especially for our digestive health and our gut health, a cultural diet is so much more beneficial for us.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you here.
Yeah.
There's this belief that even our genetics plays a part in the way some certain foods agree with us or not. For example, from South Asia, it's very hard for us to digest a lot of sugar. In a sense, we are prone to diabetes a lot, right? Especially if wheat-based things, it's very hard for us to kind of absorb, unlike the Westerners. Do you think that also kind of is linked to our cultural food, that type, our genetic profile is built for our cultural food more than the other types?
So, okay, so if we look at the risk of diabetes, yes, people of the subcontinent they're more at risk for diabetes. And I think it's been like a lot of people are like, okay, why is that? Why are they
Mm-hmm.
more at risk? And some will say that it's because we eat too much rice and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But if we actually look at it, diabetes is a very recent thing in our culture, in our societies. It's something that's happened over the past 50, 60 years. And so if we really look at what else has changed in that time is also the way we move around, the way of how much we do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, if you look at the farmers that, the traditional people who live like more traditionally on their land, they eat but like rice and curry like 3 times a day, right? But you'll find that these people probably are less susceptible to these conditions compared to other people because they're also working as hard, right? So diabetes isn't just about the food that we eat, but it's also the way we work as well. Are we consuming what we eat? Yes, over time, our genetics has changed to make us more susceptible. And that's because over time that switch has been switched on and it's just been passed from generation to generation, right? But is
Mm-hmm.
it purely because we eat more rice and curry or because of the diet, or do we tolerate it less? No, it's actually probably more to do with the way things has
Um,
changed over time, right? Whether we focus more on our vegetables and the proportions we eat, how that's changed over time, but also we look at our activity levels, because if we think about it, it's actually decreased over time, right?
mm-hmm.
We are less, foraging the lands and, doing more hard work, and things are often more easier for us in this day and age. So that also plays a part in, the risk of diabetes amongst us.
Yeah, because you know, with what you are saying, I was reading an article as well where they talk about your general. It's not just about moving at the gym or going for a yoga class or doing Pilates or, going for that one dance class, but it's about your movement throughout the day that contributes to, like your resting metabolic rate as well, so that you are not prone to these things, if I'm not mistaken. And Sabir, I just want to do a quick summary for the listeners, because you had so many important points that came up, especially about calories. And when you were speaking, what came to my mind was about how the word diet, which is a perfectly fine word, has received a bad rep, right? You go diet, you go calorie restriction. And technically, the word is just said, hey, look at what you're consuming. Is it working for you? Are you achieving the goals that you want emotionally, physically, spiritually? Is it gearing you to that wholesome content lifestyle, right? And what I do want to summarize over here that's very, very important is about you talking about just looking at calories does not tell you about the nutritional density of the food and the nutritional profile. What I'm understanding is that would mean, anybody who's looking to change their diet. And I'm not talking about restrictive diet. Okay, just change how you're eating to make it healthier. Try and look for the nutritional profile or density and see if that is what they need over there. Would that be a good summation of what you were trying to share?
Yeah,
If I've missed out or
definitely.
added, please.
I think, let's like simplify that even more, because everyone's like, then what am I looking for in terms of nutritional profile,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah,
that's
of
really
course.
hard. I mean, I don't expect everyone to have like studied all of this and understand the nutritional
No.
profile. So it's
Yeah.
very simple, actually. It's having an abundance of fruits and vegetables, making sure we have a good amount of meats, whether that's chicken, beef, fish, and having a good amount, and having your carbohydrates, so having your breads and having your rotis and having your rices, and I don't know how popular pasta and noodles are and stuff in Sri Lanka is, but like your string hoppers and your pita, you can have all of those foods, but have them with the balance of your vegetables and your meat. Don't have them as like the only thing that you eat, because I know that's become a culture where like rice is just the only thing that's eaten, and the vegetables and the meat have kind of fallen off. I know I have this running joke that in Sri Lanka you eat more rice than you do curries, right? And so something that we have to change with time is actually have more
Oh.
curries than we do rice. Because that will help. So that's like, if you want to picture it, when I say more nutrients and look at the nutritional profile, you look at How much vegetables am I having on my plate? How much fruit am I consuming? Because that's going to give you a good understanding of, am I eating enough nutrients?
Just to ask you something else, Sabira, what do you think about in this conversation BMI? Is there something the body mass index, the perfect weight you're supposed to be for your height?
Uh,
Is
Mm.
that something real? Are we still following it?
Do you want me to give you my funny answer or my serious answer?
We can have
Both,
both.
both.
So I'm going to say we're not all white men, right? Like BMI, if you look at the history of BMI, it was not created for health, right? It was created based off, I think 40. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it was a small number of white men to fitness, like to compare their fitness for some sort of military thing. It was
Mm.
just created, right? It was never a measure of health. It actually has nothing to do with health, to be honest.
Mhm.
And actually, if you look at the recent researches that's coming out, a lot of places are like negating the whole BMI business because it
Mhm.
doesn't have it's not an indicator of health in any way, shape, or form. And once they did the actual equation, once they made up the equation, it wasn't until about 20 years later that they decided to make these categories. And even those categories of healthy weight, overweight, underweight, they
Mhm.
were made by pharmaceutical companies to help just give more measures to it, right? To make it
Mm.
seem like it was more, what's it called? Valid, essentially.
Mhm.
But again, not based off any kind of data, not very much of population-based data, so it's
Mhm.
not representative of all the communities. It's not even representative of females, to be honest, to start off with. It's mainly based off males. And it really doesn't reflect the diversity of the cultures of the world and the way that body shape and size differs depending on
Mhm.
cultures. It also doesn't take into consideration how much like muscle mass that you might be
Yeah.
carrying, right? Bone
Yeah.
mass, right? The fact that, we do carry fats differently depending on the region of the world we come from. And some are actually beneficial, especially for women. It's such a measure that doesn't take into consideration the female body that it's a whole lot of nonsense, to be honest, the BMI. And more
Yeah.
research is coming out to support that as well. Because again, height is a measure that is not modifiable. So if you think about it, you can't make yourself grow. You can't make yourself shrink. You have very little influence over your height. Same with our shoe size. We don't choose how much our feet grow or not. And what people struggle to grasp, the concept they struggle to grasp is weight is actually very similar. We actually have little control over our weight. We can influence our weight, right? But we actually have very little ability to control it. So when I say control, like if I decided that I wanted to be 70 kilos, I can't necessarily control what my body does to get to that 70 kilos, or I can't even control my body to get to that 70 kilos. Yes, I might be able to, eat differently and exercise differently, but those two things, even if, or sleep better or manage my stress and do all the right things, I still can't guarantee 100% that I will get to that number because I actually don't have control over it,
Mhm.
right?
Oh,
I can do
wow,
what's right for
really?
I can do what's right for my body, right? And in return, it will make me healthy, right? But can I guarantee that I will lose and get to a certain kilo? No, unless I actually physically cut off a limb or something, I can't guarantee that weight will drop, right?
Mm.
Because your body is a vessel that's influenced by a lot of things. So our metabolism can change, and what a lot of people forget is that if we abuse our metabolism, right? So if we decide to go on these restrictive diets and we essentially harm our metabolism, right? Our metabolism gains strength. So it then is able to fluctuate and change in order to adapt to that restrictive situation, right? And as a result, might make you gain weight over time if you keep abusing it, and it processes things differently. So one of my key examples of this is I work with a lot of eating disorders. So people who are on an eating disorder. So one of the main eating disorders is anorexia nervosa, where there's a
Mhm.
lot of restriction. You lose a severe amount of weight. and you often are very, very thin, right? And to the point where you're medically unstable, right? And one of the treatments methods for that is very much feed that person up, right? They don't look at anything else. It's all about restoring weight and getting that person fed. Now, once that person's fed and they have hit their restorative weight or a higher weight, it is actually very, very hard for that person to lose that weight again because their body is adapted, right? Their body is trying to protect them, right? It's not going to let them lose that weight. So often what we find is people who have recovered from anorexia nervosa often go down the other end where they become binge eaters and they actually put on a lot of weight, right? Because your body is not going to let you do harm to yourself by restricting how much comes in, right? It's kind of like if your body sees a tiger in front of you, it is going to either get you out of there or like it's going to like you're going to fight or flight, right? You're not just, in some cases you will freeze, right? But then that'll be at the detriment of yourself. So if your body chooses that, you're not going to survive, right? So same with this whole like restriction thing, your body will fight that. It's not going to let you restrict yourself to the point where you're unhealthy. It's kind of like holding your breath. You can't hold your breath long enough, right? Even if you tried, because your body will eventually fight back. Its survival instincts will kick in, right? And food is
100%.
very much the same. And now that's very hard for a lot of people to hear because they're like, but I want to lose weight, right?
Mm.
And
And
that's where kind of, yeah,
sorry
sorry,
to
someone was
interrupt
going to
you.
say.
No, sorry. Sabira, you brought, I'm so glad you said that because you have there are lots and lots of women that I'm working with, and not even women, including people who identify as males and men, who talk about, oh my God, but I did everything. I lost the weight. And when I started just eating, it all came back. And now it's not going down. It's not going away. So this is such a beautiful way you explain, like for people to understand, like, hey, look, this is the adaptive, natural way your body is trying to protect you to remain in some sort of homeostatic state, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think
So
it's
very,
also a relief to hear that we can't control weight. Like in a sense, it's because you are from the doctors to trainers to like people in the fitness industry in general. You are given certain benchmarks, right? You have to be this X amount of weight for your body. This is your goals. It's your target. This will make you feel better. And speaking from my own personal experience, right? If I go to my ideal BMI, I feel like drawn out. I feel bad. Like I feel I'm always like in low mood, starving, like, right? So yeah, I feel like very frustrated. But like, a bit more like than that and I feel a bit better. But like, but there's always that guilty thing, okay, am I actually overweight? Am I like, no, am I being healthy here?
and
So
as
just listening to you, yeah. Sorry,
no, and
Rushma, you
as
were
a
saying.
mom, no, Zara, and as a mom for you, one also common thing that we hear is like, she just recently gave birth, okay, 6 months postpartum, right? And you hear the statement, you're still the same size. What happened? Like, why you're not like, shredded? Why aren't you back to your pre-pregnancy appearance, low weight composition? And you're thinking like, why would she be pre-pregnancy? She's post-pregnancy. So her body has gone through change.
True. Just to add on what Rushma said, actually, when I was like mindfully trying to lose weight, I wasn't. And then I just forgot about it and then I lost weight. So it's quite a tricky thing, which comes to my next question, Sabira, is like you focus a lot on the mental aspect of it, right? The psychotherapy aspect, which Rushma is also a psychologist and she can weigh in on this, about where the nutrition and psychotherapy. Can you explain the two? How does that work? And what are your like experiences with that?
I will make comments on what you guys both said before I start on answer that question. But what I was gonna say before was like a lot of people think weight, low weight, like what your weight is equals your health. And that's not true. You can't look at a person and be like, oh, that person is healthy just the way they look or just because they're at a certain weight. So I think that, I mean, that hopefully helps people understand that it's not, we're not trying to achieve a low weight. We're trying to achieve good health here to help us
Yeah.
live longer. And that can be at any weight, right? Like, just like you said, Zara, is like, you felt comfortable when you're at a higher weight, even though it's not your ideal BMI. And so it's like, okay, so the weight that you're at, what do you have to do to be able to maintain that? Like, do you have to be like working out at the gym for 4 hours a day and eating
Mm.
barely nothing to be at that low
Correct.
weight? Because that's not ideal health, right? Because you should be eating, your 3 meals and having a variety of different foods for good physical health, but also mental health, to feel
100%.
like energized and tired. So it's really looking at, if you are at a lower weight or you're trying to get a lower weight, what do you have to do to maintain that, to make that sustainable for you? And is what you have to do actually sustainable for a healthy lifestyle? And is it actually healthy for you? Right? And this is where, where I integrate the psychotherapy and nutrition is depending on the presentation. So, for example, if someone's coming to me for more like, depression, anxiety, more like depression and stress management, then we kind of look at, okay, how is that affecting the way you look after yourself? Right? Even
Mm.
anxiety, actually, to be honest. How is that looking like? How is that impacting the way you look after yourself? Because these things affect the way you look after yourself. And the way you look after yourself also affects the exacerbation of your condition. So it can make your depression or anxiety worse. For example, if you've got low moods and you're like low functioning because of any of those things, any of your mental health states, then you're less likely to eat well, right? Because you don't have the ability to eat well, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so your nutritional content of your foods will be less, right? And then when your nutritional contents of your food is less, your gut gets involved, right? So your digestive system, your gut health also goes down, right? And we know that the great brain and the gut is connected through the gut microbiome, right? So when your gut health is down, it also reduces the production of serotonin, which is your feel good hormones, which then
Mm.
also affect your ability to manage your depression and anxiety and your mental health situation. So it's like, it's a huge, they all interact,
Massive.
right? But then it's also going on another spectrum is if you're struggling with depression and anxiety, right? And you're also unhappy with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to manage your food to be happy with yourself, but you're managing your food in a way where you're cutting down everything and you're restricting anything. Well, you're not actually looking after yourself, and then you're actually fueling your depression and anxiety get worse because you're not nourishing yourself enough. But then it also, like the way, fitness trainers, personal trainers, and all the way they often push you. I don't have anything against fitness trainers and stuff. There's some good ones out there. But sometimes their mindset, I've just put that out there before anyone starts saying anything. But the way they kind of push you and they motivate you is by going, no pain, no gain. Like they put you down in a way to motivate you. Like, you're not good enough. You need to build yourself up. That's how that's some mentality is, where they're going, do you want to be like, they shame you into working harder.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't actually promote good mental well-being, and that can actually be quite traumatizing. So I work with a lot of women who have been on different diets and on different exercise regimes, and they now have a traumatic experience with exercise and fitness and just eating. They are so scared to eat because they don't
Oh,
know how it's going to affect their body.
it's like
They're
everything.
unable. Yes.
You're
And they're
just
unable to
overwhelmed.
even they're unable to even exercise, just go for a walk because they feel like they're not doing enough anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's so like, it's because it's been drilled into their mind that what their basic is not enough. But when we look at the research actually shows us that if you're eating like your vegetables, like 5 serves of vegetables a day, which is very easy in a Sri Lankan diet, I'll just say, but in a Western
Mm-hmm.
diet, it's very, very hard. If you're having like plenty of fruits, drinking adequate amount of water, sleeping your 8 hours a day, and you're getting at least 30 minutes of exercise in a day, you're considered a healthy person regardless of the weight that you're at. So you're more like
Mm.
metabolically healthy regardless of the weight you're at, right?
Mm.
And if more and more people understood that, right, the more healthier the world will be. But
Yeah.
also, diet culture don't want you to do that because you'll be buying less medications. You'll be consuming all these processed foods a lot less.
Less.
Like, yeah, a lot less. And you'll also be buying less things because you'll be so satisfied in yourself that you won't buy into consumerism and you won't be needing to buy clothes every like 6 months, right? Because you're so
That's true.
dissatisfied with yourself, right? So it's
Yeah.
not a profitable industry to like yourself. And that's why a lot of these industries are pushing you to not like yourself because it is profitable for them.
You know, Sabira, to add on to that, I was telling Zara a while back. So I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine, and I was like, why is it so hard? Like, there are people in my clinic who are associate psychologists. They want to just do the therapy for free and make people feel good and lean on their strengths and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going on this rant, right? He's like, Bushma, relax. You guys are trying to promote well-being and wellness. Okay? The persons you're trying to work with, the professionals, not all of them are like that, but it's the same thing. And he's got so much wisdom, 30 years of experience in the country. And he was telling me that they would like to promote disorder and how the disorder will definitely limit you. So you have to work only within these limitations, because if they don't do that, what's going to happen to the pharmaceutical industry? What's going to happen to this profession? How do they function? You're going about it the wrong way. And I was just like, but I don't want that to be true. It was very frustrating. But I hear you. This is true. Choosing what you suggested, pretty much apart from purchasing the groceries, right? Everything is free. Everything is like we can work towards creating sustainability in our lives with the lifestyles that everybody has, because it's going to be different for everyone, for how you approach the 8 hour sleep, how do you acquire the 30-minute workout, how do you do your hydration. But it's still doable. There are not things that are not doable, but we've created this thing like that is so big, it's so huge, it's so massive. I'm like this, so I can't do it. I'm like this, so I
Yeah.
can't do it because of this label.
Because like you're right. Like those things that I said, they're very easy to do, right? But it's really interesting because if you look at the social media age that we're in now, those things, eating healthy, going to like exercising or just going for a walk or doing like being active, drinking water has become like the thing that you achieve in the day, right? It's been made to be like, if you achieve this, you're living a perfect life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're making the simple things harder because they actually don't want you to achieve. Because if you were doing those things without them being the main thing you achieved in the day, they're just a fuel to help you get through and do better things in your life, right? Like if you really look at the CEOs of these top companies and stuff, they're like exercising, eating good food, and like drinking, hydrating, and everything, not because that's the epitome of a healthy life, but they know that if they do those things, they're able to be successful in life, right? But social media has made us think that if you just do that, you're successful. That's it. You just
Without
need
the
to do
actual
that.
work.
Yes, without the actual, like the other stuff to be successful. And it's really shadowed the way we think about ourselves and our ability to do things.
Mm-hmm.
That's just bringing back the conversation to women, Sabira. And now, apart from all the other stuff you mentioned about the eating and the hydration and things like that, for us, it's also hard to control our weight loss and gain because of our hormones, right? So, do you also look at how hormone balancing can maybe help with weight issues? Because some people are dieting, they're eating right, they're doing everything
Mm-hmm.
right, but they just can't seem to, find that healthy weight for them.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
could you,
Um,
sorry to add on to that, could you just also touch on the aspects of like hormone imbalances and like PCOS and the hormonal disorders, that the labels that
yeah.
a lot of women are having nowadays? Like in Sri Lanka, we have over 780,000 women with the diagnosed label of PCOS. So we're really
Wow.
curious to see. And that's formally diagnosed, not the ones, there are so many who are undiagnosed.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm a fellow PCOS lady, so I'm very much in that
Okay.
interesting area. I feel like it's every other woman nowadays, right? Okay, let me just start with one thing. It is actually not possible for our hormones to be imbalanced. Okay. So let me start off with that because hormonal
Like
functions,
IM,
yes, imbalance,
imbalance
like,
or
yeah, imbalance, like
imbalance?
not balance, not
Imbalance,
balance.
not
Yeah,
balanced. Okay.
not balance. Okay. Because essentially, if they're not like, they will always be in some sort of balance within themselves because
Ah,
otherwise we won't be able to function as humans, right? So hormones, they fluctuate. Their hormonal levels can fluctuate. It's actually like virtually impossible to actually balance your hormones because they're not supposed to be balanced. So that's just a technical topic. So I'm like, I just
oh,
say that
lovely.
because
No.
everyone says like, oh, I need to balance my hormones and unbalance my hormones, but no one knows what that actually means, right? And I think it's really important to clarify your hormones don't actually need to be balanced. They actually need to be succinctly imbalanced to be able to function, right? Because does that make
Oh, no,
sense,
go
Trishma?
ahead.
You're going to say something?
Yeah, yeah. No, I was
Yes,
like,
yes, very
and
clear.
aha, got it.
Okay. The reason why we have these hormonal conditions is because of the metabolic conditions that play along, right? So it's actually your hormonal problems often stem from a metabolic problem where your metabolism is kind of gone crazy, right? Because something like PCOS, one of the main drivers for PCOS is insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is a metabolic problem because your metabolism is not working efficiently and your insulin is not doing its roles, right? So when it comes to even your hormonal problems, it's going what metabolic problems are associated with this and how do we rectify that? And one of the main ways is actually by if women just try not to restrict and actually followed more healthier diets, like when I say healthier diets, healthier practices, right? Where they actually eat enough for their body, right? Yes, they might gain weight, right? Some might lose weight, but if they eat enough for their body to function and they manage their stress and they don't overwork themselves and they be active, right? What we find is their metabolic conditions become better and that's able to feed into their hormonal conditions. Because if you think about hormones, they are influenced by nutrition because most hormones, 99% of hormones are made up of nutrition components, right? So you need adequate nutrition for your hormones to be supported, right? But if your metabolism is not working well, your hormones are the last thing on your body's mind because your body is trying to maintain its good, like a homeostasis in metabolism, right? So I always like this back to the stress response because when we look at the stress response, right, the body. So when we're triggered by something stressful, whether that's, like a physical tiger walking towards us or even just the thought of a tiger walking towards us, our body responds, right? We get a very physiological reaction. So what happens is your heart rate increases, your muscles become like there's more increased blood flow to your muscles. I'm just talking about the physiological things that happen. Your digestive system slows down because that's the last thing you need to be doing when you're about to fight something. And as a part of that, your reproductive system also shuts down. Because again, if you're triggered by a tiger, the last thing your body is thinking is about having a baby. Like that's the last thing your body's like that's on your body's mind. It's not like, okay, there's a tiger in front of me, let's grow a baby. It's not thinking that, right? And that's if you think that's the primary function of, a woman's body and what the reproductive system is for. So if it's constantly impacted by these stresses and you're constantly shutting down your reproductive system, each time it shuts off, it's impacted because the hormones have to either go down or they have to increase. It's lost its flow, right? So when we talk about these hormonal imbalances, what people actually mean is the natural flow of hormones have been disrupted, right? They're not flowing the way it should be, right? And the reason for that is because your metabolism has changed and your metabolic functioning has changed, which has impacted the production of your hormones. Right? Does that make sense? Sorry, you look very
Yeah,
confused. So I'm
100%.
just looking at your face and I'm
No, no,
like,
no.
Great.
No, I'm thinking that's way much clearer because it is not the hormones that we need to balance, it's our metabolism that we need to balance, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And
But there's
also,
so much
it's
hype
nice.
around it.
Yeah, go on. Go ahead.
No, yeah.
Go.
So there's so much hype around like getting all these hormones things and like these things like seed cycling to support your. But at any point, it's not going to do much unless if your metabolism is still not looked after.
Hmm. Right. That's interesting. So because what I think I like how you made it so clear, because the whole menstrual cycle, if we take the 28-day cycle, right? Your hormones do change. I mean, you're not keeping them in balance. They need to change. Uh, the imbalance needs to happen
Yep.
in that way for you to get through your menstrual cycle. So it makes it clearer for us, I suppose, for everybody, the way you explained it about like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. This needs to go up, that one needs to go down. They don't need to be equal, so that we can cycle into the
So
whole.
it would be more accurate if you say we have to restore the natural cyclical nature of
Yep.
our
Of the
hormones, right?
hormones. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Restoring that
The
the
flow,
natural
the
way, the
natural
flow,
flow
natural
of,
flow.
yeah, of your hormones.
What
And to be able to do that, again, it's looking at the lifestyle. And even with PCOS is such a lifestyle condition, right? It's like that's why I say it's a metabolic condition as well as a hormonal condition, because it's very much influenced by um the metabolism and how the metabolism is processing different things. For example, one of the common reasons why people have PCOS is because they have a higher testosterone level, right? And the link towards why is testosterone being produced in higher amounts goes back to the metabolism, and because of this, like, because it can either be increased stress, or just like a higher like not enough of this, really testing my memory. Essentially like stems from a metabolism kind of stem with high insulin levels as well, that actually causes the increased production of testosterone. So we can't actually go and be like, I want to reduce the testosterone production. Nothing we can do will reduce the testosterone production. But what can help is actually stop the need for the testosterone to be produced by reducing your stress and managing your
the
insulin
insulin.
resistance.
So,
Right? Does that make
mm,
sense?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in that sense, can we reverse PCOS with like lifestyle changes and things like that?
PCOS, can it be reversed? I don't think anything, this is my belief, right? I don't think anything can be reversed. I think you can manage it. Like, because if you think
Mm,
about PCOS means you have polycystic ovaries, you have cysts on your ovaries, right? Those cysts may go away over time as you get natural cycles, but you can't take away, like, you can't reverse the cysts that are already being formed, right? But you can
right.
manage it so that those cysts don't have such an effect on you, right? So once you get a condition, you can't, I would never say you would be able to reverse it, but you would be able to manage it where you don't experience the symptoms anymore, right?
Yeah.
So even diabetes, like I've had so many people that come to me for diabetes, and they're able to manage their diabetes to a point where they're no longer on medication. Have they reversed it? Well, it depends on what your
Mm,
definition of reverse is. Because if your definition of reverse is like, I'm no longer on medications, then yes. But if your definition of reverse is, I no longer have diabetes, well, then no, because you're always going to have diabetes. You're just managing it in a different way.
it's
Um,
like emotions, like how somebody, like when you get really, really angry, most of the time people will come to me and say, I want to stop my anger. I don't want my anger. I don't want to be sad. I want to stop it. So the first
Yeah.
thing I say is like, those are fundamental things for the body's functioning, right? But now, when you progress through, not just because they don't have any more explosive bouts of anger or anything, doesn't mean that anger has been stopped. Like we've removed the emotion from the body. It still exists and will show up when it needs to. So it sounds like it's similar, but in the sense that you're like, you can't really undo it. You can't take it out of the human body functional.
Yeah.
just to we've had a really long but like a very interesting conversation with you, Sabira. Just to, as we end, kind of end with some tips for our audience, which we like to do all the time. Take kind of key take home messages they can practice in their everyday life.
Hmm.
What would you suggest are some important ways? You have told us about managing stress and hydration and exercise, but in terms of nutrition, certain specific ways, or like people like to have all these trending foods, superfoods that we talk about.
The super
what are
green.
the ways that they can maybe add a bit more nutrition, health into their lives, manage their day-to-day diets better? Do you have any tips for our people?
Sprinkle.
So my main one, and this is just for everyone that I speak to, is try to aim for eating more. Eating more fruits, eating more vegetables, eating more of the nutritional based foods, because I think the world is so much focused on what you shouldn't eat. So there's always people are telling you, don't eat this, don't eat that, but everyone's kind of like, well, if you're not eating those, what are you having? So my biggest tip is, if you want to start making a change today, rather than going, okay, what's on my plate and what do I need to get rid of? Going, okay, this is what's on my plate. What else can I add to this to add more nutritional content without changing what's already there? It's like, what else can I add to this, right? To make it more increased in nutrition. So for example, if you've got a plate of rice and curry, we're Sri Lankan, so it's rice and curry is typical, right? For us, it's going like, can I add more of the green salads to this to add more nutrition? Like, what do I have that I can add more of to add the benefits to? So it could be as simple as, okay, I have a tomato here, let me add that and let that, because just by adding one more thing, you're increasing your nutritional quality, right? Which means you're improving your health, right? You don't need to add one thing and take something away, because quite often if you do that that kind of process, you're going to take away something you like and you enjoy, right? And then you lose the satisfaction in your food. And then when you lose the satisfaction, you're looking for satisfaction in more food, in other foods, right? So it's looking at what other nutritional, like what other thing that's healthy can I add to my plate now, right? Without taking anything away, what can I add, right? And the more we try to do that and try to make sure that we're eating enough, no skipping meals kind of business, no, okay, I have a dinner tonight, so I'm going to skip none of that business. You eat your meals and you make sure you get enough food to support your body, right?
Yeah. So no intermittent fasting.
No intermittent fasting. That's a whole, call me for another podcast on that one.
Oh, would love to. Oh,
That's true.
that's thank you.
Rishma, do you want to add anything?
Just thank you. It was so informative. It was so educational. It was such an easy, it's always a breeze to have a conversation with you and Sabira. So you really took out very important things. Like, even if we take out metabolic issues or hormone issues or whatever, the most basic thing: diet, calorie, nutrition. Like, look at these things. Like, we have to start there before anything else. Is like what was coming to my mind. Like, oh, you made it so simple. Like, hey, everybody, just look at the nutritional content and see what else you can add to your plate today. Done.
Sure. And for
It's so
me,
simple.
actually, it was like a real stress relief to hear you say that I have no control of my weight. Like, I can, but like it's like something I don't have
I
to
mean, to
stress
be
about.
honest,
That's
Zara,
the
you don't
And to
need
guarantee.
eat
to.
more.
You don't need to. You're 6 months postpartum. You need to give it your body 2 years to recover postpartum before you can think
See?
about doing anything to change it. Yeah.
Right?
There's so much pressure. You know what? Like, it's hard. Like, I've done it 4 times over, 4 kids. I
Yes.
understand the pressure. And sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves because we feel like we need to bounce back, and it makes us feel like we've become ourselves again. But I think at the end
Yeah.
of the day, whatever pressure comes from anyone else, you need to know for yourself that you're doing what you need to do to look after your body. And no matter what anyone else says, you know your body more than anyone else, right?
That's a beautiful note
So,
to end on, Sabira, because you brought it back
yeah.
to the mind and to the self and how you treat yourself
Yes.
at the end. Right? Even all these numbers, it's just how you treat yourself at the end. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Sabira. Thank you, Zara,
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks,
So
Rishma.
hopefully
Thanks,
we'll see you
Saabira.
for more podcasts.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank
having me,
you.
guys.
Hi, I'm Rushma
Zara here.
again. So if you like what you watch on this channel, please follow us for more, because we're going to be bringing you a lot of stories from women in Sri Lanka who can inspire you, empower you and motivate you. So to support us, please do.
Subscribe, like, and comment on our channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.